The burning question for Philadelphia area football fans and bettors is why? Eagles, why? Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Bontempo. Welcome to the channel that delves into the roller coaster ride of what it's like to be an Eagles fan and gambler. I am joined by two great partners, Pete Amato, who is the head of Eagles.com and also NJBetting.com, and Bill Gelman, who is the head of NJ Gambling Sites and PlayNJ. If you enjoy our video, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And if you want to get a notice on our next video, hit that little bell button. We're going to have our show in 4 quarters plus overtime, of course, and there is a lot to get into. So, Pete, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about the evolution of why Eagles why.
Well, why Eagles why is basically for Eagles fans, from Eagles fans, and as Eagles fans, we don't get shown the greatest light in the national media, but we kind of welcome that. We like that. And Bill and I are just like all the other Eagles fans out there. We're angry, bitter fans. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to complain. We're allowed to talk trash on our team. But in the end, no matter how much of a disappointment our team really is to us, we love every minute of it. And we'll never stop being fans. So it's all about the passion. It's all about the good expertise, knowing what you're talking about and not just crying, whining about everything. So that's basically why Eagles why. Everybody always has a question about their team, always wants to know what they did this for, what they did that for. And if we're here, we can answer some of those questions coming from passionate Eagles fans like the audience.
All right. And Bill, for you, what is your first big why? The burning question for you as you look at the Eagles right now.
Why didn't the starters play a half in the preseason? I know the preseason isn't really a time for starters to play, fear of injuries, but here you have a new coach. You have a lot of players that are really unknown still with the NFL. Even our quarterback situation, this is really going to be the first full season for Jalen Hurts. I would have liked to just see more play in the first half to get a better idea of exactly what this team has going into the regular season.
All right, the quarterback situation is interesting, Pete. This is one of your burning questions, particularly Gardner Minshew.
Yes. Yeah. Why haven't the Eagles really come out and say that Jalen Hurts is their guy? They still haven't done it. They've had many chances to do it. And in my opinion, I think Minshew is going to be the starting quarterback by the end of the season. I like Jalen Hurts. I just don't see a franchise quarterback there.
Well, that's an interesting point because Minshew, by the way, talk about alliteration. 2 years ago, remember Minshew Mania? They were making a big deal about him every week with the Jacksonville Jags, and he showed a great pocket presence and a great clutch presence. And then it just shows you how quickly life can change in the NFL. And Bill, I was surprised. I was kind of pleasantly surprised that the Eagles got him.
Yeah, and they got him for a bargain basement price. I mean, the reality is they really needed another backup quarterback. Joe Flacco, even though he's a local South Jersey guy, won a Super Bowl MVP. He's at the tail end of his career. Nick Mullins, why is he still in the NFL? So
well, he answered. He definitely got himself out of Philadelphia with his play. Now, how do you guys evaluate the style of Minshew versus the style of Jalen Hurts?
I think Minshew seems more of a student of the game. He might not have physical attributes that Hurts has as far as like running and speed, but what worries me about Hurts is he looks like a one and done guy. He sees one read. If it's not there, he puts his head down and runs. That doesn't get it done in the NFL, maybe in college, but not in the NFL. And like Bill said, we have backups. In my opinion, we have 3 backups on the team ever since we got rid of Wentz. So one of these guys needs to step up, and I think Minshew is going to be the guy to step up.
Hey, what about the chemistry of the team, Bill, with the moves that they made? Maybe nobody really knew. Am I the quarterback? Am I number 2? Pete was talking about 3 backup quarterbacks. What type of impact have all these moves made, in your opinion, on the chemistry of the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, in reality, if we look back at last season, we had Carson Wentz starting, and you never know with Carson Wentz with his track record of always being injured. Your top two wide receivers were Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffries, who's pretty much has spent more time in the sidelines than they actually did on, playing game action. So here you have Jalen Hurts, who's going to be starting at the beginning of the season. You have a core of young wide receivers who really haven't seen much from yet. So we don't know if they are NFL caliber receivers. And if you look back last season when Jalen Hurts started, he did have 300-yard games. The Eagles didn't win those games. And in one of the games against the Cardinals, he was also sacked 6 times. So in my mind, stats really don't matter. It's like the Eagles are in a rebuilding phase. No one will deny that. So, but is Jalen Hurts that quarterback who will lead the rebuilding, or is he more of a gadget play quarterback? And that's, what I want to find out, why did the Eagles draft him?
This will be our final question of the first quarter. Bill, you mentioned that game against Arizona for Jalen Hurts last year. 3 second quarter touchdowns. Do you think that raised the bar for people? And I'll leave this open to you, Pete, after Bill. Do you think it made a lot of people set up for their own why Eagles why?
Yeah, I think it did. But at the same time, you have to do that consistently. He had another 300-yard game. I don't remember, it was before the Cardinals game or after. Against the Cowboys. But, let's see what he does over a course of a full season when he knows he's a starter, when he knows the offense is building around him. I always saw him when the Eagles drafted him. I saw him as a gadget play quarterback, some of those trickery type plays. At the time we thought Carson Wentz was our quarterback, and then we saw what happened there. So it opened the eyes, but I want to see what happens when the whole season is built around Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback, the one running the offense, the supposed quarterback of the future, whether or not he is. Pete, where do you
All right, Pete, final play of the first quarter for you, your evaluation on what you have seen on Jalen Hurts.
I think a lot of fans, because it was going so bad, just were hoping for something good. And a lot of them put their blinders on. And when something good did happen, everybody kind of expectations went up. This guy's the next big thing. But it was, even though it was 4 games, he was consistently bad, really. He actually, 26.7% of his throws were bad throws, which was the worst in the NFL. Drew Lock, which was the worst as far as longer stretch, at 22.9%. So, I mean, he had bad throws. He also took the longest time after the snap, which was 3.39 seconds to get rid of the ball. A lot of people said, oh, he didn't do bad. I just thought he was consistently bad, and it had a couple good flashes through those couple games.
Yeah, in reality, it was only 3 games, because the Washington game was like, why did they even play that game?
Yeah.
Well, that's another why Eagles why. But this is the end of our first quarter, and we'll take a closer look at Eagles personnel and the first game of the season in the second quarter. All right, we start the second quarter of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. And as the Eagles prepare for the first game against the Atlanta Falcons, we have to have a report card from this game, probably, Pete, about what about the Eagles taking DaVonta Smith in the first pick? What about taking a lineman? They did lead the league in sacks allowed last year. So there was a choice to be made there. What was your sentiment coming out of that? And what is your feeling on that choice that they had to make?
I would have liked them to see them take a lineman, especially we have we have a great line on paper, but we have aging linemen. We have injury-prone linemen. But I was okay with DaVonta Smith. He's a great player coming out of college. I think he might be a little small to kind of for the NFL defensive backs, but I hope I'm wrong. That's remained to be seen. So I was okay with DaVonta Smith there being being their first round pick.
And, Bill, when I think of this, the public, they want, and the fan base, what do you mean offensive lineman? We want something shiny and new. We want something with some sizzle on it. And I talked to a couple of football coaches afterward, and they said that's a factor, and maybe a big factor in how some of these teams make their choices.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was fine with the pick. I mean, in reality, if you look back, who was our wide receivers last year that we could actually count on? Travis Fulgham. What happened to him after he had that one great game? Now he's on the practice squad. I was actually excited. I was watching the first round of the draft. I'm like, yes, they're trading up. They can get them. They need young wide receivers with speed. We'll see. Size is a factor. We can see if DaVonta Smith, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. Doesn't really mean anything in the NFL, but he showed that potential to be a stud wide receiver in college. And I'm just curious if him and Jalen Hurts can develop that chemistry early on this season and finally give the Eagles a true number one where we don't have to worry about, oh, he's going to be hurt again. He's not playing for 6 weeks.
Well, now you come up with a good point here for both of you that not only Smith, but a guy who the Giants took, who's kind of like him. The Giants would have liked to have gotten DaVonta Smith. The DraftKings research compiled for us told us that. But the Eagles made a nice audible to move up. But Kadarius Toney of the Giants, same type of player. Both players hurt during the preseason. Now, when you looked at that, did you think that these guys were banged up badly, or more it was preservation? Let's make sure we don't make any bad steps in the preseason and waste our draft picks. How did you guys feel about the injuries for Smith and for Toney for the Giants?
I think preseason they kind of played scared a little bit. I don't know if as far as Smith, I don't think the injury was that serious. But I think they kind of went into it scared. They didn't want another Deshaun Jackson thing on their hands. And if he does get seriously injured, then that's another strike against Howie Roseman, who failed to see the future of how he can pan out. So Howie hasn't really been that great of a talent advisor. So I guess that they were just I think they played scared. I think they played it a little too safe.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe they don't want to ruin that pick in the preseason. Bill, I will say, when you look at this guy, he's got a great nose for the football, broke some tackles when we look back at his college days, and ran very good routes from what we saw. They were the first things that stuck out to me about DaVonta Smith. What attributes do you think he has? How has he impressed you with what you saw of him?
I just think he's got speed. He can definitely catch. And if Jalen, the problem is we don't know the Jalen Hurts part of the equation. You need that quarterback wide receiver combination, like I'm going back in time here, but like the Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, the Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, the
McNabb T.O.
Yes, McNabb T.O. Well, did he make a big impact in his first game as an Eagle right away? Bomb down the field. What do you guys think of how the Eagles offense looks coming into the game here? Now, we talk about all these moving parts. How do you think it's going to look? You've got Miles Sanders, who's been a quality back. I mean, they need a running presence, but they did lead the league in sacks allowed last year in the NFL, 4 per game. When you throw the whole mishmash into it with Smith and with Sanders, and what about Jalen Hurts? What comes into your mind as to what the Eagles offense will look like in this first game?
I think you said it right. It's going to be a mismatch. Fortunately, the offensive line is coming in a lot more healthy. They still have their Pro Bowl offensive linemen. They have Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson. So I think they're going to be more solid at that point. But I still think it's going to take time for these guys to really connect with each other, especially because the preseason, we have no idea how they look. I mean, you can only translate stuff to the regular season in practice so much. If you're not going to play in a game before the season starts, you have no idea what's going to happen. So I think it's going to be a little shaky at first and maybe first couple games, but at least they have their offensive linemen. If they can stay healthy, I think that can be like a good starting point, kind of a good get their foothold, get their offense going.
All right, to get a hold on this game coming up, even though we haven't seen all those things in the preseason, you still come in. What would you guys say? A couple of keys to victory. What do the Eagles have to do against the Falcons? Now, okay, we haven't seen a lot in preseason, but Bill, what do you think are the things the Eagles would have to execute as they are +3 at FanDuel and across all the major sports books at the Falcons, who we've seen have been a little pea-hearted over the years. What do you think are the keys to victory for the Eagles to get a victory in week 1?
Number one is, as Pete mentioned, offensive line is key. If you don't have that protection up front, nothing in the offense is going to click because they're going to be pressuring Jalen Hurts the whole game, and he's not going to be able to establish any rhythm. Number two, they have to get off to a quick start. The Eagles have a notorious reputation for not playing a full game. And I don't care, it goes all the way back to the Andy Reid days. Mm-hmm. It's like you need a full effort from this team, especially a young team that's, just getting, establishing their NFL footing. And I think number three, you gotta make a strong defensive stand in the beginning. Shut down the Falcons offense. Don't let them jump out early. You can't be playing catch up in this game.
Pete, how about you for keys to victory for the Eagles?
Yeah, I agree with Bill, especially when he talks about the Eagles defense. I think the Falcons have a good offense. I mean, they have a lot of firepower on their offense. Matt Ryan is still Matt Ryan. They have a good running game. They have 2 great wide receivers now. So I think it's going to come down to the Eagles defensive line getting to Matt Ryan, and the secondary kind of holding them to a certain amount of points each quarter. The Falcons are going to score, and they're going to try to score quick. If we can just kind of slow that down a little bit, we may have a chance at pulling this one out. It's going to be tough because our offense is not going to be jumping off like theirs, I don't think, to start, and we just got to kind of slow them down because they're going to score, they're going to make big plays, but if we can just kind of limit those big plays, I think that's the main key to winning this game.
Kyle Pitts, who the Eagles would have loved to have had, but he was taken by the Falcons in the 4th pick. You knew he wasn't going to last. An exceptional tight end. By the way, there are some short prices on him as an anytime scorer. He's a prop. Mm-hmm. What do you think the impact a player like he is going to have on this game? And what do you think the Eagles think when they look across the line of scrimmage and there's a guy, boy, they just would have loved to have him, but they just drafted too high?
I think he's going to have a huge impact on this game. The Eagles are notoriously bad against good tight ends. I don't know what it is since Jeremiah Trotter, the Eagles have really ignored the linebacker position. And as far as a tight ends, especially good ones, have been able to do whatever they wanted against the Eagles. So I think Pitts is going to have, as far as him coming out his first game, he's going to light it up, and especially he has Matt Ryan. So
I think he is going to be a big part of the game. Bill, how do you see where Pitts fits into this picture?
I think he has the talent that can be a difference maker in this game. If the Eagles secondary and linebackers, whoever's covering him, doesn't have their attention on him the whole game, he's going to end up biting them. And he was a player, I think, probably more than half the teams in the league, if they could have grabbed him, they would have taken him. I see him being one of the top players in this year's draft class.
Yeah, a great player. So with that, we come to the end of our second quarter. And in our next one, we're going to talk about the division the Eagles play in, the NFC East. Least or feast. But it definitely is something Eagles fans love to talk about. Why Eagles? Why? Third quarter. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, Bill Gelman with you. And we want to talk about the NFC East. Least, feast, whatever it is. I was talking with Johnny Avello, the head of DraftKings, yesterday, and he said, boy, that is such a wide open division, 8 or 9 wins in that. you could be a king. So somebody has to win that division and come out of it with a playoff shot, Pete.
Yeah, somebody's got to win. I don't know if any of last year it looked like none of them actually really wanted to win. I guess they all wanted the high draft pick, but that's a whole different topic. Yeah, I think it's right now. I think it's a feast. I mean, it's like a least feast. You know what I mean? So
yes,
it's it doesn't look like it's not going to be the greatest division again this season. A lot of teams have gotten better. The Redskins defense is looking really good. The Giants defense was really good last year. They have a lot of question marks about their quarterback, and Dallas Dallas Cowboys are what Dallas Cowboys are. They have a ton of talent and they just never can figure out how to use it. So it's a huge question mark. I think the Eagles do have a chance to win it. I don't think they're the best team on paper at all, but it seems like these teams, all four of the teams, they just can't figure out how to put it together to put a winning season together. So I think it's wide open.
But Bill, that does make it exciting in the sense that no matter where your team ends up on a given week, you're not far out of it. We know with the Dallas Cowboys, it's Dak or they're in the back. And he's returned this year, but I don't know if he's at his full health.
Yeah, no, he had a gruesome injury last season. And it seems like the Cowboys, if they have any shot in the world of winning that division, it's Prescott or bust, because as soon as he went down, it's like, I mean, they weren't doing anything great, but I remember sort of like last season, they had heavy money on the Cowboys. And
yes,
but it's like, no, there's not like in the previous years, like going back a few years, there was always like one team in the division where you started the season, you were confident, like this is the team that's going to win the division. Last few years, it's just like, it's a wide open race. And, it's sad that 10 wins, even maybe even 9 wins can win this division. And it shouldn't be that way. This is the
9
NFC.
wins easy. Yep.
Hey, when the Eagles were 4-9-1 last year, they still had a chance to win out and win that division had they won their last 2 games. So they would have been 6-9-1 instead of 7-9, which Washington did do. Washington does have a quarterback. I think it's a quarterback upgrade in Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he's probably going to add a little different dimension to that team because there was no mobility with their quarterbacks last year. Pete, what do you think of the move to Ryan Fitzpatrick for Washington?
I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I've always liked him. You see what he can do on the field. Sometimes it's a little inconsistent, but he's a gunslinger, and that's what you're going to get when you have a gunslinger quarterback. You're going to have high highs, you're going to have low lows. And I think with their defense, with the Washington defense, putting him in good field position throughout the games, I think the Redskins, if I had to pick one team to really stand out, I think Fitzpatrick puts them over the hump and makes them, in my opinion, the favorite to win this division. A lot of the experts seem to think the Cowboys automatically have it wrapped up. I don't see that at all.
I think the Cowboys are traditionally overbet, which is a very good opportunity if you like to bet the other teams because their prices go up. And Bill, we saw the impact of Chase Young on Washington last year, reminded many people of a young Lawrence Taylor when the Giants got very good. Besides the Eagles that we have focused on, which other team in the NFC East has intrigued you when you look at this season?
I think the Giants are the other team you really have to keep an eye on, because I think if they're like the Eagles, they're rebuilding. They're I think a little further ahead because they found their quarterback sooner than the Eagles. Daniel Jones, I think, is the Giants quarterback of the future, whereas Jalen Hurts, we really don't know. It's no longer like you can't go into this season. Washington, New York, they're not gimme wins. They're not like, you got to go into every game like it's a playoff game in this division, because it's the only way you're going to, have a shot at getting control, because the reality is I consider all 4 teams in this division mediocre teams until they show us something, until they show us that they have that star power to put them over the top and not be a one and done playoff team.
So that would lead to the question for an Eagles bettor, plus 500 at most of the books to win the NFC East. If everybody's mediocre, is that a pretty good incentive to, without giving specific advice? We can look at that and say, well, there's value there. Like, they shouldn't be plus 500. Dallas shouldn't be so close to even money. It seems like when one team is bet as much as the Cowboys, it does open up avenues for other teams. And it seems like a high price when you look at the Eagles.
There's definitely opportunity to make money there with that line. Even if you don't think they're the best team going in, plus 500 is some nice odds there, especially for a division that's so wide open as it is. Yeah, and I agree. I'm definitely staying away from the Cowboys with that line so close to even. They're always heavily bet, and they're relying on Dak Prescott to be healthy, which we've seen in the past with such a gruesome injury. That's usually not the case right away.
All right, so as we go around and look at the league, Daniel Jones, I think, is in a put up or shut up year for the Giants because he's shown potential. He had 24 touchdown passes, then 11, made some big mistakes for them. Washington upgrades at quarterback. And Dallas, Bill, I'll give you the last word on this for this segment. They did something interesting in the draft. They had that Swiss cheese defense last year, and they used most of their draft to address defensive problems. They picked up Micah Parsons to start with, and then a lot of defenders. How soon into the process do you think, when guys come out of the draft, can they be impact players on defense in the NFL?
Honestly, it really depends on the player in my mind. I mean, it's like you have a handful of players that I think come in ready to play, but I think a bulk of them need a season or two of NFL game experience to really show what they can do. Because it's not, even if you're playing for a college like Alabama, LSU, Clemson, all the big schools that are competing for the national championship, it's a huge difference between the college game and the pro game, and it really depends on the division you're playing in, and two, how quickly you adjust from the college game to the pro game.
All right, so watch the NFC East all year, and we'll tell you that these odds change after every week. And if you buy on the dip, a team that you like, and that team loses a couple games, the odds become very attractive. And the NFC East was probably the most intriguing division to follow that along with the books last year. So we're going to put an end to quarter number 3 and come back with the fourth quarter. It's the fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. We now go around the league, Eagles fans. And one of my favorite games this week is a rematch of Cleveland, Kansas City. The Browns almost beat the Chiefs in the postseason. So the question now is whether they can get over the top in this kind of a game. And the Browns are getting 6.5 points. So that's a good line for them with their young quarterback, Baker Mayfield, and all of their weapons. My question for you guys is, the way Kansas City was humbled in the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, did the Bucs teach the rest of the league something about how to handle Patrick Mahomes?
I think yes and no. I think the Bucs have such a good defense that even if other teams see what they can do, they really can't repeat what they did. They probably have the best defense in the league, actually going into this season, in my opinion. But they might have showed a little chink in the armor for Mahomes, especially. It all depends on how Mahomes comes out this game, and I think he's going to come out firing. I think it's that game is dug at him for this whole offseason. I think he's going to come out firing, and I think the line is, in my opinion, the line is a good line. 6.5 points. I think they're going to win by at least a touchdown, the Chiefs.
All right, Bill, I'll go to you about the game that you like to talk about. I thought it was very interesting too. Pittsburgh and Buffalo, and it started out with Buffalo giving 6.5 points to the Steelers. What is your first gut as you look at that game, and why do you like it?
I like it because I think the Buffalo Bills are the team to watch in the AFC. They really showed us something. Josh Allen seems to be one of those star quarterbacks coming into his own now. I think the Bills, they belong in the conversation. I mean, granted, the AFC East is not a strong division. I'd probably put it next to the NFC East, only that you have one really strong team in there. It's weird not to be including the Patriots in that conversation, but I think the Patriots, until they reestablish themselves, they're not going to be the Super Bowl Patriots. So that's why I just see, when I looked at the teams to get to the Super Bowl, the Chiefs and the Bills are the top two teams that come to my mind in the AFC.
And Pete, you like a game I think is pretty fascinating too, with Minnesota at Cincinnati, as Joe Burrow is back. He's got Jamar Chase, the receiver he threw to in college. How do you see that? And what do you think of these Bengals?
I think the Bengals are good. I think people are forgetting about how good Burrow was last year until he got hurt. They're home and they're actually the underdog. They're getting 3 points this week, and I think that's a pretty solid bet in my opinion. I think, like I said, I think people forgot about how good Burrow really was, and now he has another superstar wide receiver to throw to on top of the all the stuff he had actually last year.
And it's a hot debate too, because he really elevated the question. We saw it with the Eagles and talked about it too, with DaVonta Smith versus an offensive lineman in the draft. But he was injured last year on a sack. And the organization was criticized for not protecting their number one draft pick. And they had a chance to get Penei Sewell, who was very good at that position.
Yep.
But here was the sizzle and the steak, and here was the wide receiver. So when you look at that, evaluating them, if you put yourself in the crosshairs of the Bengals, Bill, what would you have done with that for the draft? Would you have taken the Cadillac wide receiver, or would you have tried to protect Joe Burrow?
Yeah, it's a really tough call, because it's on one side you have a wide receiver and a quarterback who played together in college coming back together. But on the other side, you need someone to protect the quarterback. So it's like it's sort of like you flip a coin, and I don't think you can go wrong with either pick. But looking back, based on what happened to Joe Burrow last year, I would have gone offensive line first, because you have to protect the quarterback in this league.
And that was a classic question. Everybody kind of knew that, but then, oh, look at this shiny object here, this great wide receiver. Let's go there. Okay, so that's our fourth quarter. 3 games to look at, and we'll be back with a quick shot at overtime. It's going to be a fast overtime on Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman. All right, Pete, tell us what's going to happen in the Eagles-Falcons game.
I would love to pick the Birds here, but I can't. I think the Falcons have too much firepower on offense. So I would take the Falcons and give the 3 points. I think they're going to win by, let's see, I'm guessing it's going to be 35-7, right? No, let's go 27-7. That's my guess.
27-7. Okay.
Yeah. So that will also be with the over-under at FanDuel right now is 48.5. So I'm going to go with the under. So I'm going to take the Falcons giving 3 points and the under of 40.5. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. We'll see how that pans out.
All right, Bill, how about you?
I'm sort of going back and forth in my head. I also think the Falcons are going to win. I just can't decide if it's going to be a close game or a blowout, because I haven't seen enough from the Eagles offense. But I'm going to go Falcons 17, Eagles 14.
Okay, a low scoring one. I like the field goal in there. That's a pretty good possibility for a first score for an Atlanta field goal. They like to do that. We'll see if it pans out. Hey, thanks for being with us. I enjoyed being with Pete and with Bill. If you enjoy our video, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and you'll see us every week. So long, everybody.
See you guys later.
Yeah.